Good evening, councillors. I'd like to start the committee by calling for nominations for the chair of this committee. Have we a second on it? Have we got any other nominations? Can we take a vote on that one? Sorry. All in favour? Thank you very much. That was yours there, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for your support for me continuing this for another year. I must be doing something right, I suppose. But sorry, just bear with. I won't be able to see anything without these. Okay, thank you. So moving on to item. Oh, yes, I have indeed. It's not on there, is it? I'm looking at the wrong item. Can I please ask for nominations for vice chair, please?
Councillor Last.
So Ted Last has been nominated. Is that seconded?
Second.
And seconded. Patricia? So Jeremy Nettle, you accept, Jeremy, or does somebody wish to second that? I'll second it to make sure it gets on the vote, if that's okay with everybody. So we'll go for those in favour of Ted Last, please raise your hands. Yes, of course. So 1, 2, 3. Any against? 2. That is carried. I think, do I then ask Jeremy as well? No?
No, mathematically.
Okay, mathematically, Ted, you are vice chair. If you'd like to come and join me up here, please. Thank you. Item 2 on the agenda is apologies.
No apologies for absence were received, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item 3 is public questions or statements.
None were received, Chair.
Thank you very much. Let's keep rattling through like this. Item 4 is councillor questions or statements.
Chair, to advise you that Councillor Suddards has a statement that he'd like to read in relation to one of our later agenda items. I appreciate difficulties over communication for this, but following your lead, happy to allow Councillor Suddards.
Yeah, of course. Andrew, do you want to come up to the mic in front, please? Thank you, and read your statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me to speak on the trans inclusion policy amendment. I believe our objective should be to reach a position where this subject is really no longer an issue at all. Trans people should definitely feel accepted and able to live their lives free from prejudice. Women's rights, privacy and protected spaces should be respected. Everyone should be treated fairly and lawfully. We should use plain, neutral language wherever possible, particularly where some terminology may itself make people uncomfortable. People should be free to live as they wish, but our policies must also recognise biological realities and the legal rights that flow from them. Those principles need not be in conflict. The proposed changes to this policy put forward by council staff move us in the right direction, particularly the revised approach to toilet provision and inclusion of lockable gender-neutral facilities. I fully welcome and support that change. Perhaps these changes should be made some months ago. I first raised concerns approximately 8 months ago, and the existing policy has remained out of date and no longer safely aligned with current legal position for too long. But I'm happy we have moved a big step in the right direction. I'm a little disappointed that my comments sent to council staff on Wednesday and my subsequently follow-up on Friday has caused this communication confusion. I did hope that these relatively narrow points could be considered quietly before the meeting, avoiding the need for me to raise them here. But we are where we are, and I prefer now to concentrate on achieving a really constructive outcome. I am suggesting just two limited wording amendments. They don't undermine the policy's intention or reduce protection afforded to trans employees. They're intended merely to make the policy clearer, using what I think is better language, more balanced and more legally robust. The first amendment concerns paragraph 14.4. Is it possible to get that up on the screen? The current wording lists trans, non-binary, and cisgender employees. But I think we can word this in better language to, we recognise that access to suitable toilet facilities is important for all employees. This retains the inclusive intention, but expresses it in simple, more neutral language. It avoids applying terminology to employees that may not recognise or be comfortable while excluding absolutely nobody. As it's taken a while, I'll just pause here till we get the 14.4. So the last line there in the 14.4, where it says, important for all staff, including trans, non-binary and cisgender employees, I'm just recommending that we change that to, we recognise that access to suitable toilet facilities is important for all employees. A very simple change that avoids the use of terms that not everybody likes. The second amendment concerns paragraph 4.1.1. The current policy says that the right to have a person's pronouns respected is not negotiable. I suggest replacing this absolute wording with better wording that is actually more in line with recent legal rulings, which has found that it needs to be based on individual circumstances. However, I fully agree with the intent that we should always try and use those chosen pronouns. But the proposed wording is, employees are expected, as a matter of professional courtesy, to use colleagues' stated names and pronouns. Deliberate or repeated misgendering may, depending upon all circumstances, amount to harassment and may be addressed under Council's dignity at work and disciplinary policies. Any concern will be considered fairly, proportionately, and in context. As I say, there have been several legal rulings where applying non-negotiable has not been supported by the courts. But this continues to give trans employees meaningful protection from deliberate or repeated mistreatment. However, also recognise that individual circumstances must be considered fairly and proportionally in accordance with the, as I say, the clear current legal precedent. I therefore ask the committee to adopt these two small amendments. They do not alter what the policy is fundamentally seeking to achieve. They improve the language, remove unnecessary sources of contention, and provide a better balance between the relevant legal rights and protections. I believe that with these changes, the Council can adopt a policy that is fair to everyone, legally sound, and capable of commanding broad acceptance. That should help us reach the position we should all want, one in which trans people are treated with dignity, women's rights and privacy are respected, language is clear and simple in all directions, and everyone can live their lives free from prejudice in an atmosphere of mutual courtesy and tolerance. Thank you.
Andrew, thank you for that. Can I just say I've allowed you to speak because I would let you speak as a council member anyway, but I don't think you submitted the statement before 3 p.m. Deadline, which is part of the council's standing orders. I'll take this as a statement for this committee noted. I think it's down to this committee if it wants to amend or change any policies. And if you obviously have an issue with that moving forward, you're completely within your rights to take any motion to full council, if that's okay. But this is noted. And as I say, it's up to members around this table, I think, to change any policy or for you to take, or any council member to take motions to council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So moving on to item 5, which is minutes of the previous meeting, which was held on the 23rd of March. Does any member have any comments to make about those, or are you just content to approve them? Can somebody propose and second, please? I'll take Jeremy and Patricia in that order as proposing and seconding. Thank you. I will sign those after the meeting, okay? Item 6, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest from anybody? Nothing heard. Yep, sorry.
Apologies, Chair. Just to make a declaration of interest under agenda item 14 and 15, I think it's probably appropriate that I absent myself from any discussion. We have head of corporate, head of HR, and the wonderful Andy Hunt in the room, so they'll be able to advise appropriately. But as it contains discussions around the chief executive, I'll dip out of that one if I may.
Thank you for that. That's noted, Asa, and apologies for looking this way and not behind me. Okay, thank you. Item 7, any dispensations?
None, Chair.
Thank you very much. Item 8 is Chair's announcements. I have none, you'll be pleased to know. And we'll move straight on to the item 9, which is the budget outturn monitoring report. Corporate HR, Janine, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this report shows the first 2 months of this financial year, so to the end of May. It shows currently there's 31k underspend, but I think that's contributed to the fact that we're so early on in the year, so spends haven't come through yet. We have got a couple of changes of cost centres there, so you'll see we've got an 800 and an 801. They're relating to Salisbury 800 activities, and we also have an ITP, which is a new cost centre to cost things to do with IT projects going forward as well. We don't currently have any variances exceeding £20,000, so this report is to note, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Do any members have any questions? None at all, in which case I will move the recommendation at 2.1 to note the financial position at the end of May. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Okay, thank you. That's carried. Any against? There weren't any. So, okay, thank you, Janine. And moving on to the item 10, the councillors' training update, please.
Thank you very much. So you recall back in March when we last met, we talked about some of the activities within the department this year. And one of the things we kicked off was a councillor intranet page. And within that, we had various training opportunities that we'd put forward. And we've continued to do so throughout the year. You'll see that there's in item 4 of the report, we've got a list of training that was offered to members, and section 5 shows you the uptake. As you can see, some training was attended better than others. I think when we discussed previously, it was that I got a feel that the committee felt that I should strongly advise councillors to attend various training. So you'll see in this report, I have got an additional recommendation this time. So firstly, it's to note the training opportunities that have been provided so far this year. The next is to agree mandatory training for all Salisbury City councillors. So this is a step further than strongly recommending. Obviously, it's for you to discuss and decide whether you think mandatory training is a step further that we wish to take. If we were to continue with training offerings for councillors, the next recommendation is to agree that councillors who are able to attend training would attend later training approved, whether that's online, etc. And the fourth recommendation is to agree that mandatory training would be recorded and reported on annually to full council. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Janine. Just before I bring in members, can you just, some of those training courses, are they all here? Can you advise, or some of those online that members can take at their own pace?
So looking at the list we've got here, so procurement training that was provided online, that was a live session, so you had to attend at a specific date and time. However, it was recorded so members could then go on and view it afterwards. Planning training again was the same. It was live online, but there were recordings were available afterwards. Data protection and safeguarding were trainer in your own time, so you can log in and out as you wish to undertake that training. And the members code of conduct training, which unfortunately no members signed up for, would have been in-house in the Guildhall, conducted by myself and Asa. So we've got a variety to try and suit everybody's needs, and if it is a specific date or time, we try and provide a follow-up video or slides to members as well.
Brilliant, thank you. And it was me as chair, you'll hate me for this, that did ask that members probably ought to be doing some, should I say, compulsory or mandatory training, particularly on planning, which I raised, and aware actually that planning training is likely to change. Certainly is at Wiltshire from October the 1st with the new planning application call-ins disappearing for members, and I don't know if you've seen that. Have you seen the note that came out from Wiltshire Council on the changes to planning?
Just to say, Chair, that our very own Andy Hunt will be providing an update in mid-August, but something a little more comprehensive in the mid-September planning meeting. We'll make sure that we get that across to all members, but we're on the case, sir.
Brilliant, thank you. I can share what was shared with me. It wasn't confidential, so I can pass that across as well. Do members wish to make comments on this at all, please, on training? John.
Just one comment. I have sat through a very lengthy training session on planning, which I'm not even sure when I was really sharp, when I was about 13 years old, I would have committed all of that information to memory. And I'm not averse to engaging in training, but I would recommend that the training initially be on key issues which regularly occur. And what I would really appreciate is the opportunity to have access to a basic guide for governors to certain issues which might arise at particular committees so that you can refer to it. Because even if you go through the training, you're probably not going to remember it all, but it's important stuff. So I feel a bit guilty that I'm not versed in all the relevant information for every committee I stand on. And quite often it takes an awful lot of reading for me to find out what I need to find out, which is relevant to the issue that we're discussing. So yeah, by all means, a basic introductory to training, but also some documentation, which I don't know whether we can access that, which is easy to, shall we say, identify specific information about issues that you're discussing at that particular point. I mean, there are some councillors, Jeremy sitting down at the end there, probably knows an awful lot more than I do about a whole range of procedures. And I think particularly for new councillors, and in terms of councillors, I've only been a councillor for about 5 years. I think that's relatively new in terms of experience. So I think, yeah, it's something we need to work on. I don't think we're going to fix it immediately, but I definitely agree with the motion, but it's the detail of how it rolls out that I'm really interested in.
I think before I bring Ted in, I think it's easier to catch new members after an election. Then you can grab them all and say, you must do this, rather than, catching members a quarter of the way through, should I say. Although I am for this, I haven't moved anything yet, but Ted, Jeremy, then Patricia, please.
Just a thought. Some of these courses are online. Some you can follow from a video conferencing or whatever. But would it be a good idea periodically to say what courses are available at the time, online or however? I look through these and I see that there are at least two that I should attend. One to remind myself, and one because I don't think I know enough about. And I'd like to know if they're available, and if not, when they might be.
Absolutely. We've tried to ensure that we provide periodic updates to councillors in terms of new training that's come out in, if it came out by WOW, or sort of one of those organisations, when we've had a new tranche of training come available, we've tried to, send that message out to all of you. But absolutely, we can make it that if this was in place, for example, we'd make sure we're reminding councillors on a much more frequent basis that the training is coming up, what's available, etc., to help enable you to be able to attend. Absolutely.
Jeremy, please.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Sorry, I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
welcome the paper, absolutely spot on, I think, and I certainly agree with the chair. I think I did last time that there should be mandatory training. And I think there probably will be issues with planning, how those planning rules change. And so those that have done planning, I don't think will be wasted. I think the new legislation, I mean, we'll learn from in the new legislation. My comment really is around the online training and the idea that you can, just do a short piece or a long piece or do the whole thing or absorb it. I do some training for another organization on the receiver, and some of the compliance training is between 3 and 4 hours long. And so trying to do that in one go is quite a challenge. I agree with Councillor Wells that by the time you've got through that, you've probably forgotten what you saw at the beginning. But I do think it is important. I mean, it is important. It's not thinking, it is important, especially safeguarding. And I think that all of the ones that you've got on there, what I would say is that it would be good just to send, including myself, because I noticed that I'm one of the culprits that hasn't done any, a reminder. And I know that sounds a bit sort of school teacher, but I think we all do need reminders. We may see them and think, oh, that's a good idea. I think I'll do that. And then something may come up and you can't do it. So I'm sorry to ask you to do that. But even if it's an email that says you didn't attend last week, this is available for you, and then it's recorded as you do. So my view is that this is a great piece of work. It just needs a little bit of us being nudged.
I just have two questions. One is, I attended the planning system 1 or whatever it was, and I was left with the impression that that was enough by the way of an introduction to planning. I'm not on the planning committee, but I saw that would tell me what I needed to know. And going back to what John said, in that session, there were some key points that I felt it was quite straightforward. There were key points to take from that. I can't possibly comment on the others because I didn't go on to those. And the other thing was the safeguarding. Now, when I worked with health and social care, you had to top it up every 2 years just by using one component of that. Are you looking that, is this something that we do once and then it's done? Because I do have a higher level of safeguarding training, still current, actually. Yeah.
So the first question regarding planning, absolutely, we put it out that we'd invited all councillors to attend the first session. So if you ever had to substitute, etc., then you've got that first level. And then we requested that members of the committee attended the following second and third. That was absolutely right. Thank you for attending that first one. In terms of the frequency, I believe I've popped it somewhere in the report. We'd do it based on here we go, mandatory training. It's either annually or as required by legislation or best practice. So as you say, if best practice is to do it every 2 years, if the legislation changed, we'd do it sooner, etc. So we'd do it based on those parameters. Yeah. I think in that circumstance, we could certainly, if you were able to provide a copy of that qualification, then we could absolutely note that, and then, you wouldn't be required to attend any further training on that matter. I think that would cover it. That goes to say with all of those items. Obviously, some of them would be slightly bespoke to us as a council. So we'd be proposing, for example, the finance training would probably be conducted by the RFO and ASA. The governance training would probably be provided by myself and ASA, and that would be, refreshing ourselves on standing orders, looking at the members' code of conduct. Obviously, each year we have the, budget setting, etc. So I think it would just be this training is here to support you, to support us in both ways. So this isn't to trick anybody, to make anybody miss a session. It's absolutely to work together better and to make sure all of our knowledge is up to the best standard.
Brilliant, thank you. Janine, sorry, so of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the list, how many of those, because we've got a members intranet as well, which is where this would be sitting, how many of those are, and I ought to know, shouldn't I? How many of those are sat there where members could go on tonight after this meeting and complete the training?
So the procurement training and the planning training, the videos are on there available for those. So you could go and watch them this evening if you fancy. And the safeguarding and the data protection, those you can log in anytime. So they'd be available again to log in anytime.
Okay.
It's of that list, it'd be the finance training and the governance training that we'd organise in-house
Okay.
at a later date.
So we could sort of, so I'll move the recommendations 2.1, 2, 3 and 4. Sorry, I'm not, could we say possibly then, or hoping all members can support this, we can add that to go out if Jeremy, you asked for the link to go out and I endorse that. I'm one of those as well, so you're not the only one. And I tend to I do it on Wiltshire, so I think I'm covered, but I ought to be doing it here as well as at Wiltshire as well. Maybe those 4 courses, if we could encourage councillors, we could hopefully say everybody on this committee supports it. That's what I'm thinking is going to be the case in a minute. And that potentially those 4 courses, we would encourage members to complete them, I don't know, by the end of the year or something like that. We could say tonight, but I don't think they would. And obviously finance and training and governance training would be led in here. Is that correct? Yeah. So I don't know if you need a 2.5 or whether you just take that on board if members are content. Because if those 4 courses are there, then we probably ought to be logging in to say that we've already looked at them. And I've looked at the procurement one. I was a procurement officer as well. So,
Chair, and committee, if it helps, we're really happy to work with the chair of the committee to make sure that we put in place an appropriate scheme that meets the best practice, but also is achievable given the timescales as well. So if you're happy that we work with Councillor Dalton, and if the chair is happy with that.
yeah, content to CC in colleagues here as well, so we're all in the loop. But does anybody have any issues with the recommendations on the table? Okay, all those in favour then, please. So I'll put my hand up as well. That is every said no.
I have doubts.
We're too late now. We voted for it, but so.
No.
So-
I think the general tenor is right.
Okay, we've all supported that, so that's gone through. Okay, on item 10, that's a good report, and I think all members should be encouraged to do all the training. Item 11, request for a revised post.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight. So many of you will have heard from me via my many toilet-related emails, but luckily not here tonight to talk about toilets. So I'm Sean, the Health and Safety Manager here at the Council. I also manage and oversee the facilities team, who are responsible for maintaining the Council's buildings and estate, as well as the commercial and residential property portfolio. So I'm here tonight to talk to you for a report which requests to change an existing estates officer role within my team into an estates and health and safety officer role. So I've been in the role here now for about 15 months, carefully reviewing our arrangements towards how we manage health and safety, making adjustments and improving wherever we can. In that review, I've identified an opportunity for us to strengthen how we manage compliance, inspections, monitoring, assurance methods across the organisation and across our estate. And I feel this is the opportune moment to bring this to you, as I currently have 2 staff in the role rather than the 3 allocated, as one has now become our pantry manager about 4 months ago. So the role I'm proposing is a estates and health and safety officer role, which is a bit of a mouthful, I appreciate. And it's designed to address the need that I've mentioned. So the role would provide dedicated support with activities including but not limited to fire safety, water and Legionella management, health and safety inspections and audits, contractor management, and helping with coordination for training such as first aid, fire warden, and going through our DSE stuff, so our desk assessments that all staff have to complete. It would also support me with risk assessments, incident investigations, compliance monitoring, and any record keeping, and then also support the team with estate responsibilities, providing the 2 existing staff with some much needed additional support while adding the additional health and safety knowledge required. As highlighted within the report, the role will also strengthen our operational resilience and provides kind of structure of support to myself as the health and safety manager and ensuring continuity, apologies, always struggle with that word, during any periods of absence for me. In terms of training for this role, so the successful candidate would be, to enable them to be successful in the role, we'd be providing them with and supporting them to complete their NEBOSH General Certificate in Occupational Health and Safety. So they'd be supported by myself in doing that. I hold the NEBOSH Diploma in Health and Safety, and the funding for that training has already been identified within our existing training budget. Within the report, you'll notice there was 3 options that were considered. So option 1, which is my recommended option, was to establish the proposed role. So it provides a dedicated officer with clear responsibility for estates and operational health and safety support, and helps us strengthen compliance, improve the resilience I mentioned before, and support safer and more effective management of the council's estate. Option 2 touched on kind of redistributing these responsibilities amongst the existing estate officers. However, having reviewed this, I don't believe this to be a suitable option. The existing officers already have substantial workloads, and ask them to absorb these additional responsibilities would reduce their kind of capacity to manage our estate as effectively as they can. And the job evaluation process that the role went through also identified that the changes that we're proposing constitute a kind of distinct role rather than an addition to the existing estate officer's role. Option 3 was to do nothing and retain the current structure of 3 estate officers and myself. Whilst that avoids any change, it would continue to place kind of increasing pressure on the existing resources we have, reduce resilience during periods of absence, and increase the risk of gaps emerging during our inspections, and meaning we might not meet our statutory requirements. For the reasons I've mentioned there, obviously my recommendation would be to go with option 1, as it represents the most effective, sustainable, and proportionate solution. The financial impact of this is something I appreciate I've not yet touched on. It is relatively modest, so the additional annual cost, including all the employer parts, comes to £3,692 per year. This can be fully funded from existing budgets, so I'm not proposing any additional council funding. The proposal mentions using the existing health and safety budget to fund this uplift, as it will provide me with a much needed support towards our health and safety responsibilities. Therefore, I'm asking the committee to kind of to approve this, the establishment of the health estates and health and safety officer post, of the understanding that it would need to go to full council post this meeting. Thank you. Any questions?
Press the button. Sean, thank you, and welcome to the committee as well. I'm going to ask for member questions. Ted's already badgered my ear, so I'll bring Ted first.
Yep.
Jeremy, then Sam, please.
Very simple one. The actual legally responsible safety officer, I am presuming, will not be this new appointment. It will remain with the health and safety manager.
That's good. So I think ASA, as CEO, has overall responsibility of health and safety, but then obviously I'm deputised through being the health and safety manager and holding the appropriate qualification.
Jeremy, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. A very good report, and gave us a whole load of options as well. Though I thought when I read it that options 2 and 3 I ignored. Yeah, I mean, this is a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned, and happy to move the recommendation once the people have had their questions.
Okay, that's been moved. Is that seconded? Sam seconded it. Quickly, Sam, you got a question, I think.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Agree with everything Jeremy said. Excellent report. Makes perfect sense to me. I am assuming that the qualification that you referred to will be met under the existing staff training budgets. And that's why it's not mentioned in this report. Fine, thank you. And I think I probably ask this every time, but do we have, maybe it's a question more to Ace, I don't know. Do we have provision here that if someone takes the job, gets the training, immediately leaves, we recover that cost?
The short answer is yes, Chair. I say it with a wry smile. There are people in this room that have signed an agreement that such. If we do spend a considerable amount of money, and our head of HR will be able to tell you the exact figure. We do in effect put some handcuffs on them that say if they leave within a certain time, they must pay it back.
Perfect. Great. In that case, I'm happy to support, as I have seconded it. So yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions from any members? Okay, no, that's on the floor then, 2.11 and 2.12. All those in favour, please?
Apologies,
Oh,
Chair. I think Mr. Hunt wants to jump in.
Andy, sorry.
Sorry, just to check, actually, if you can put the recommendations from the one we published to, if you look at 2.12, the original one read, it didn't say to approve to full council. The one we published said to approve, so I'm just checking that the one you're about to read, it says the exact same one.
No, the one the one I've got here says approve the funding
Yeah.
of the role. From
Sorry, I just
within
want to make you
the facility.
aware.
So, okay,
that.
so, right, so we are recommending to full council.
We are, Chair.
Okay, that's fine.
We hope to change that under the scheme of delegation going forward so that this committee can make these decisions without that having to go to full council.
Okay,
But at the same time, we do think it's really important that councillors make the decision around increases or changes to budgets that affect salaries.
okay. So as on the screen then, members, 2.11 and 2.12, all those in favour, please raise your hands. And that's carried, none against. So thank you. Thanks, Sean. So item 12 is the HR KPI data. Tracy, please.
Thank you. So I think you've got me for a while now. So hopefully this, so if we can just scroll down a little bit, this is the usual report that I bring to committee every quarter. So I was just going to highlight a few headline things and then take questions if that's okay. So in terms of our general data, what it's telling us is our workforce remains stable. So we do have lower than industry standard turnover. So, you know, our staff are staying with us. And our recruitment, if we can scroll down a little bit, I was just going to go to the page that shows the recruitment stats. If that's okay. So the next one. So this one here shows that our recruitment has improved slightly in the last quarter. There's still opportunity for improvement, but obviously there's only so much that we can squeeze this because we do have to allow time for people to, for the job to be advertised and then for interviews to happen and notice periods to be given. But we are looking at that. In terms of if we can scroll through to the sickness data, so another couple of pages below. So this table shows us that, you know, the second part of the quarters are showing a reduction in general sickness absence in comparison to the previous. So long-term sickness in this quarter continues to remain a challenge, but actually our overall level of sickness is reducing. And when we're looking at the main themes of absences, they are still around things like anxiety and mental health. So in April and May, our managers spent a significant amount of time doing our stress risk assessments, understanding what the causes are that they could spend some time and reduce and mitigate in order to hopefully bring that down moving forward. So the report is for noting, but I'm happy to take any questions on the data.
Thank you, Tracy. Do members have any questions at all? Jeremy?
Certainly not a question, but again, very comprehensive report, and I love the infographic. Thank you very much. Made it so much simple. I did have a problem with this graph, actually. The colouring, the green, 2026, yeah. So is the green, and bearing in mind, because is that turquoise or is that green that shoots up? That one there.
So that's turquoise. That's the 2022 data.
It was okay. So the 2026 is the green. Which is the green one? That, oh, I see, down in the middle. Yes, sorry, I've got it now. I got it. Yeah. I missed it.
We are doing quite a lot on this graph, so it might be that, you know, maybe we're doing too much. If, you know, I'm happy to take feedback.
Yeah, I'm just for members' thoughts, do we need to go back 4 years, maybe the last 2 or something like that? Just so it makes 3 years, perhaps, Tracy, just makes the graph, I think, easier for shall I say, us to understand? But any other questions? Or Jeremy, thank you. Sam, then Ted, please.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, no questions. Just to say again, thank you again for the report. It's really helpful to be able to look at it. The graphics, just it's fascinating sometimes to look at and wonder what happened in December 2022, for example. But no, really helpful to look at and to be able to compare to previous years. So that's it. Thank you.
Ted.
Oops.
Just a very short one. First of all, Tracy, I'm always impressed by what you do.
Thank you.
I was just looking at this sickness absence by calendar days. Looking at it and having a quick think, my maths is not working as well as it used to. It strikes me that the absence rate is very low, relatively. And it would be rather good if we could have it down as percentages of employees in terms of, rather than numbers. That will give us a better idea of how well I think the council is doing in looking after its employees, or perhaps we're driving them too hard, I don't know. But I think it's probably the first. So thank you.
So can I just clarify what you would like is to see percentage of days lost or something?
Sorry, say that again?
So would you like to see something like percentage of days lost?
Yes, percentages days lost through illness would be great, because I think it's very low, and it'd be easier to look at the percentages rather than raw numbers, because we don't know how many people are employed.
Absolutely, so we can do that.
John, just before I bring you in, Patricia, on the 3 years, would that be January to December or financial years? And would it be the current year plus the last 2? Is that what you're thinking? January to December. So this year, last year, and the year before. Tracy, just on that point, sorry, before I bring John in, can you just explain what short term is against long term? So long term doesn't, that's long term sick, sorry, it doesn't go back the years that we've looked on here, does it? If that makes sense. That's long term sickness and short term sickness.
Yeah, so did you want me to define what long-term sickness and short-term sickness is?
Yeah, go on, yeah.
I was going to say it's over 4 weeks, but I can just see that it says 2 weeks here because our HR administrator pulls together this data for me, and we've changed the classification. So my thoughts are that the long term is meant to be over 4 weeks rather than 2 weeks, but on that point, it might be one of those things, and I need to check that out.
Okay, thank you for that. Do any members have any other questions?
Just a quick calculation, Chair. As I was sat here playing with my calculator, my maths teacher said I'd never have one in my pocket all of the time, but he was wrong. If we look at, for example, May 2026, we have something like 89.5 full-time equivalents working for us in May 2026, 31 days in May, and just a quick calculation, I kind of worked that out to be about 3.8%. Now, we can go and have a look at that again and give some more details, but that would be the kind of percentage rates that we could give you in that kind of way.
Members content with that? Yeah. Jeremy?
Pennies just dropped. I realised that when we looked at the previous graphs with all the lines on it, it was the reason why we had such a big problem, which I think somebody asked, is that was COVID 2022. And I'm just remembering that time because there were, there weren't so many people in, but there was quite a few people sick because of obvious reasons. And I think the idea of a percentage is a great one. So sorry, I was just blubbering really, but thank you.
I think we're going to remove, so we'll have 26, 25, 24, we'll take off 22 and 23 to make the graph more legible, is that the right word to use? So that the COVID years would disappear off, and obviously would change the numbers of days, is that correct, to percentages? Sorry. AC and BC. Okay. Okay, so anybody else want to, sorry, John, yeah.
Yeah, just a couple of questions about the background information to some of the data. And I don't know, I think when you've got long-term sickness, some contextual information without breaching confidentiality could be useful. For example, are there, during any of these periods, how many staff are subjected to, shall we say, an interview to discuss long-term absence or frequent short-term absences? So in other words, where there is a member of staff where action is being taken to address their level of attendance. Also, it might be quite interesting just to see a separate set of data. I pretty well got it here anyway, but the percentage of absenteeism when you take away the number of days lost, because somebody that's on long-term sick will hugely skew the figures, and then when they come back to work, suddenly the figures improve. So I think the absence is I'm quite happy with that sort of rate of absenteeism, but it'd be interesting just to see if there were any particularly significant issues which might, shall we say, tell a bit of a story behind that without obviously naming names or going into too much detail. Is that a reasonable thing to ask for or not?
Yeah, so I can answer your first question about return to work interviews. So Sarah Purvey, who's our HR manager, is very on this to look at, basically every member of staff, regardless of how long you're off sick for, has a return to work interview. And the reason for that is to normalise, both from a duty of care perspective, but also to understand, is there a potential theme here? What can happen? So we take, individual, we don't just kind of do a return to work interview if you've been off sick for a week, for example. Even if you've been off for half a day, we'll still do that return to work interview, and that'll be uploaded onto our database. And we absolutely can give you some details removing the long term, because you're absolutely right. We have got quite small numbers, really. So one person on long-term sick can really skew the information. But going back to the general principle, our figures, if we benchmarked against public sector, are very low in comparison, but that doesn't mean that we're complacent. So it still is an issue for Salisbury City Council when people are off sick. So we're still taking that very seriously. So we actively engage occupational health, for example. We put in those reasonable adjustments. So we're doing all of that kind of work, even though our level of sickness is maybe lower than other public sector organisations.
And it's a sort of a quality assurance issue, not a matter of chasing absenteeism, that if people are on long-term sick, presumably that there are good reasons for that, and that that's reflected in a policy which supports people through a period of illness and so forth. So that's the other side of it, because it's not always about, gosh, the attendance isn't very good, but it's actually making sure that we are, shall we say, there's an action which is supporting the people that are causing the spike in absenteeism.
Yes, we balance that duty of care with the fact that the council's got jobs to do, so we have to constantly balance both of those things, and both of those things are given equal attention to be able to resolve the situation moving forward in the best way possible for both interests.
And I mean, I do know from experience that where there has been a review of attendance, where there is, shall we say, agreement with union representation and HR staff, where, shall we say, there is an unreasonable expectation of employees, that is addressed, as well as, people being treated unreasonably.
Yeah, so we have triggers that we use to determine whether or not we start moving to formal processes, but even those triggers are considered in the context of things like disability. So we might increase somebody's trigger if they've got a disability and they're off for that reason. But, we are balancing all of those things. We will have meetings with union reps present and HR present and the manager and the employee, where there is a kind of bigger sickness issue to try and resolve it and ensure that, you know, the council's able to do the jobs and the work that we need people to do.
And just one final thing, just off the top of your head, say over the last 12 months, how many times or in how many cases has occupational health been involved?
Off the top of my head
No,
over
that's
last year,
wrong. I shouldn't put you on the
say,
spot with that.
I'd say probably about 6 to 8 referrals, I would
Okay.
say.
Thank you.
John, thank you. Patricia.
Just kind of feeding in with what's been said, we can see on the graph there that last summer, you know, something happened. So it is, for me, it is that sort of information that might be helpful, you know, because you've clearly got a big spike there. But what does that mean?
So we can definitely work on the narrative. So, you know, next report that I'll bring, I'll look at kind of, you know, the stories behind the data.
Thank you. Any other questions from members at all? No. Okay, so the recommendation is to note. If we're all content with that, thank you, Tracy. Thank you for that. So moving on to item 13, which is the HMRC consideration of new petrol reimbursement rate.
Lovely, thank you. So this report is concerning, you may have noticed that HMRC have increased the level at which you can claim if you use your own car for work purposes that you don't have to pay tax on. So previously it was 45p a mile, that was increased to 55p a mile, I think about a month or so ago. But our policy doesn't state the words we use the HMRC mileage rate. So for that reason, I brought this paper to committee because technically it is a change of terms and conditions. So that's why this report is being brought for you to make a decision as to whether or not you wish the mileage rate to increase from 45p a mile to 55p a mile. It has got a fairly modest impact. So the indicative annual increase is around £682, with about £122 for backdated payments to April. So the RFO has confirmed that this can be met within the 26-27 budget. And if approved, HR will make all of the relevant payroll adjustments and update the relevant documentation. So are there any questions?
Tracy, thank you. Sam first, then Jeremy, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have one question, one observation, I suppose. And the first question is there a reason why we shouldn't, as a matter of policy, tie ourselves to whatever the HMRC suggested rate is? I suppose, you know, as I say, I suppose the obvious answer is if they whack it up massively, then that could be detrimental to our finances, I suppose.
So the answer to that is I don't know. It may have just been missed in the policy when the policy was written, but my recommendation would be that after this, if that's what you would like, that we could put that in the next time the policy is reviewed, just to, I mean, to be fair, I don't know when they previously had changed it from something to 45p, so I don't think it regularly happens. And it would mean that, you know, we just go in line. It's normally in policies. That's normally what I would have expected to see.
Thank you. And then I guess the other thing is, well, I mean, I don't have a problem with this at all. It makes perfect sense to me. I suppose it's a very small number. I'm surprised the number is as high as it is, which is not a criticism or anything. Or I suppose I'm surprised that it's as high as it is that we have council staff using their own vehicles. Not a question, just a observation. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, good point, Sam, to be honest, on, you know, making this, if HMRC increase it, then perhaps we should be just doing it as a matter of course, to be honest, rather than coming, I know it doesn't come back. First time I've ever seen them increase the rate for many years, I think. But I have to say that civil service pay 30p a mile. So they're very generous. But I've no issues with that if somebody wanted to move it on top of, but I'll bring Jeremy, I think it was Jeremy, wasn't it? Jeremy, then Ted, please.
Okay.
Shouting because we're live streamed. and
Yeah,
people-
sorry, now we are. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Chair. I'm surprised how small amount it is, so that's the first thing. There's no, I don't think HMRC yet distinguish between electric vehicles and any other vehicles. So if you have an electric vehicle, your quid's in. And we don't own a vehicle for staff to use, I'm assuming.
We don't have a pool vehicle, no.
No,
Well,
okay.
we have vans.
Yeah, but not a vehicle for,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, no, I'm very happy to support the recommendation.
Ted, please.
I would like to propose that we take this recommendation and for future increases by HMRC in the recommended amounts be taken on board and our allowance be raised accordingly. It is only a small amount, and even with, so stop.
Is anybody, I think what you're saying is what we just said, isn't it, about just tying the council's policy in with any HMRC future increases, I think, if members are content with that. I'm not seeing any. So if HMRC next year, say it's 60p a mile, I doubt it, they will, maybe another 10 years' time, then the council will just increase that rather than coming back here, because it's what their rate of, I'm getting the nods of yes. If can we add that in?
So I think that's what I was intending on item 2.3.
Ah, okay. I didn't quite get down there yet, but I was just going to ask on to an idiot sat here. Could I just explain? Sorry, can you just explain? Sorry, what the difference between 2.1 is, where it's saying approve the payment of backdated to the 6th of April, but then 2.2 is also saying approved backdated payments for eligible mileage claims already paid. Am I not reading those as the same? Or?
So I think I've probably poorly worded it, but basically 2.1 is looking at, do you approve 55p a mile? 2.2 was meant to say backdated to the 6th of April, because you could decide on, yes, we'll pay 55p a mile, but only from the 1st of July. So that's what my intention was there. So yeah, I probably shouldn't have put it in 2.1 as well.
Okay, that's fine. So 2.1 as it is, but yeah, we understand. 2.2, 2.3. So you're saying 2.3 anyway to delegate it. It's
2.1, 2.2, 2.3, done.
Yes, done. 2.3 already delegates. Apologies, I should have spotted that when we met last week. But,
Chair, if I may, just super clear around 2.3, because apologies, I've read 2.3 slightly differently than I think the conversation that we're having now, which I think the conversation is you do want to tie any future rate rise by HMRC into our policy. Yes. That's what I understood. And apologies, I'm reading 2.3 and I don't think it quite says that. Does it? Is that the intention?
That was my intention, but if it's not clear, then I guess there's the governance
So
bit about.
can we reflect that super clear intention in the minutes, Andy, that we are talking about tying the council to the HMRC rate going forward?
yeah. Okay, members content with that? Very clear. Okay, so I'll move, can't remember if I did or not, but I'll move 2.1, 2 and 3. All those in favour, please show your hands, please. Okay, that's passed. Thank you. Item Asa is going to excuse himself. Okay, thank you.
Isn't this an item early for Asa to be excusing himself? Okay. He just wants to go home early. Right, okay. All right, we'll allow it.
Okay, thank you. So Asa has left and that will be noted in the minutes. If we can move please to item 14, policy review, HR. Tracy, you again.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. I wasn't going to go through the changes for each of the policies, but you'll see that there's an Appendix A in the report that talks about each policy and why I'm bringing it for change. So basically, the report asks the committee to approve a set of updated HR policies and related procedures so they can be implemented across the council. So the changes aren't a full rewrite of the HR policy. They're targeted updates to make sure our policies remain legally compliant and that they're clear for staff and managers. And the amendments broadly fall into three areas. So the first is around employment law compliance. So the Employment Rights Act 2025 brings a lot more, a fair amount of changes to some statutory rights. So things like paternity leave being a day one right, and bereaved partners paternity leave as well. The changes in the policies are at statutory level, so there's no enhanced contractual paternity pay levels, for example. This is just what we have to do to comply with the law. The second area of changes tends to be around governance clarity. So this is how ASA spoke about the proposed disciplinary policy and capability policies. So upon doing the piece of work about the CEO appraisal, when I read the disciplinary policy, it wasn't particularly clear on how we manage senior disciplinary processes when it comes to things like appeal. So what I've tried to do is pull together employment law, the local government association's chief officer handbook, and the size of the organisation that we are, as to why there's some procedures that kind of describe what we would go through should we be in that unfortunate position. And then the third area is about practical clarification and housekeeping. So, for example, some of our special leave policies talked about paternity leave, so it was kind of was covered in separate areas, so had the potential to be confusing. But within this, these changes, there is one decision that I'm asking committee for, and that concerns the probation policy. And the reason that I'm asking for a decision on this is I would like the committee to consider moving from having a 6-month probationary period to a 4-month probationary period. And the reason for that is under the Employment Rights Act in January 27, the rights for unfair dismissal are reduced from a person having worked for an organisation for 2 years to 6 months. So what that means in effect is that we have to go through a full procedure, and if we move the probation period from 4 months to 6 months, we're more likely to maybe follow a more streamlined lesser procedure while we're still in a probationary period. So that's the kind of one decision area. So subject to approval, the updated policies will be communicated to staff and managers. I met with the trade unions on Wednesday. Well, actually only one of the trade unions, the other ones didn't attend. They were broadly happy with the amendments that were suggested. They didn't have any changes, but what they did say was that they were going to ask for some more specific advice on things like health and safety policy, just to make sure that that was okay. So, they didn't have any issues, but they were just they recognised it wasn't their area of expertise either. So they were going to ask Unison if there was anything else that we needed to think about. So I don't know if there's any questions. So it might be good to just take some questions or comments.
Tracy, thank you. I was going to follow up on the TU, so thanks for just explaining that to the committee now. So there are recommendations in the report, as Tracy said. One of those is seeking an approval at 2.2. The rest is to note, isn't it? We're not going to change national policies anyway, so it has to be to note. I think even the probation period is part of that. I agree. We need to approve it, but it's all part of the same. The umbrella policies, should I say, that are coming down from central government. Do members have any questions at all on it? Jeremy, please.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Chair, that it's pointless us debating it if
national government has decreed it, so, and especially as unions have supported much of this. I just don't want to lose the item on 14.4 though, so I don't want us to vote on something and then we don't come back to 14.4 because I hate that to happen. And this is the transgender. I'm happy to just to make a comment on that. And I think you've heard from the councillor at the beginning, Andrew, saying that I think it is important in the society that we're living is that we are equal and we have that. And I just feel that some of the wording in it is maybe uncomfortable for some people that aren't used to some of the messaging in here and the wording in here. And I know the wording is statutory, but I do think this is about being softer and inclusive for all employees. So that's so for 14.4. I'll wait till you get there, paragraph 1.
Right, we're just finding it.
Sorry.
It took a lot of work, these policies, as you
Yeah,
can
there's a lot
see.
of policy. There's a lot of policy.
Yeah, there is a lot of policy.
You're getting close. It's in red, yeah. So I think that the 14.4 on there, if you make that any bigger, we can see 'cause it's a bit. And I think it says we recognise that. I think the suggested wording replacement was we recognise that access to suitable toilet facilities is important for all employees, whether trans or not. This retains the inclusive intention while using simpler and more generally understood language. That just seemed a lot simpler to me when I read it.
Jeremy, sorry, I don't have this in front of me. I'm just looking at it on the screen. Are you asking an amendment to what
Yes.
Councillor Suddard had earlier raised?
Yes.
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, that's.
Tracy, can I just ask you to perhaps briefly outline to the committee on, should I say, your thoughts around this policy?
Absolutely happy to. So I'd like to take a little rewind, if I may, back to the reason that we introduced this policy in the first place, which was partly around communication and awareness, as well as respectful setting standards that showed a respectful workplace. So, and what we said was that, having a trans inclusive policy hopefully would ensure that trans employees felt respected and also attracted potential trans employees to our kind of organisation. So using this kind of language is its intent is around that kind of understanding and awareness. As far as I'm aware, the term cisgender is intended to be a respectful term rather than using trans or not, and so that was the intention behind, defining the terms trans, non-binary and cisgender.
Yeah, sorry. I can see that. I think it's I think if this is a policy for staff, this is about we know that we're not all the same, and I think that's the important thing about it. But it just seems to me that we are singling out a particular group which we know we want to include, and by singling them out, aren't we actually raising an issue? I suppose that's my issue about it.
So I think, am I okay to continue?
No, Tracy, please, yeah.
So I think what we're trying to do is recognise that there are difference and use respectful terms for difference. It would be great not to have a trans policy at all because actually people didn't feel marginalised, but that was kind of.
That's not my point. Sorry. My point is we are all different and we have got all kinds of people, but do we need to identify those people as, and we don't, it's far better to be inclusive of everybody, surely, as a council. We want to say to everybody, you know, irrespective of what their sexual orientation is and what they want to be, this is about being open to everybody rather than specifying an individual group.
So I think I
Can
still don't feel clear on the question.
Can I come in there? Sorry, because Jeremy, if you want to put some words forward as an amendment and then ask for a seconder, I'll take it that way, please.
Thank you. Thanks. So the suggestion wording was replacing the current wording with on 14.4, we recognise that access to suitable toilet facilities is important for all employees, whether trans or not. I mean, yeah.
I'll second that.
Can I just, Tracy, sorry to come to you on the wording. I mean, is wording like that, I mean, can I say, is it legal? Is that a good expression of wording to use in any of our policy documents?
So I don't think it's illegal. I think it's possibly not the terms that we would use in this kind of a policy because, you know, the language is important, and my understanding of equality and diversity is that in order to demonstrate that, recognising and seeing that difference and by naming it is inclusive practice, but it's not illegal to change it in the way that you've described.
So Jeremy, can I just ask then on 14, which is what we're looking at, so you're content with 14.1?
Yep.
You're content with 14.2?
So, yeah, 14.4.
Sorry, was it 14.4? So you're content with 14.3?
Yeah.
So it's the wording on 14.4 that you're suggesting that we change, and obviously keep 14.5 and beyond that. So Patricia, you're content to second. So if that's the amendment on the floor, I will take that as it is then with the amended wording. Do members have any comments to make on that, Sam?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Chair. I will not be supporting this amendment, and I would like to tell you why. I think it's an interesting turn of phrase, Jeremy, to say that we're not singling out any group of people, and I think I disagree. I think we have to be singling it out, and I think that the language that is being used in this policy by its nature needs to be signalling to a marginalised group who have come under enormous and unwelcome scrutiny that we are an organisation that accepts these people for who they are. No questions, no further questions, no issues, no questions asked. There is a huge similarity, I think, in this kind of debate to every single awful social media comment I see under articles about gay pride events saying, where's the straight pride? It's the same as every single article about International Women's Day, which is full of comments from men saying, what about International Men's Day? Where are these things involved? We put scrutiny, we put attention onto these groups because they are marginalised, and it is to signal that, yes, it is okay to be this way. I also think it is extremely incumbent on the councillor involved, I'm sorry that he has left, to make sure that the language he's proposing has been, this is a policy document, to make sure that we have some kind of review, legal or otherwise, that says, yes, this is acceptable, this is not going to cause us problems. This policy statement, these words have not presumably just been made up and invented. These are words that have been passed through officers, presumably some sort of legal review. Like, these are important policies, vital to the way we run this organisation. If we want to make a change to them, I think it is extremely important that we make sure that these changes are subject to that same level of scrutiny. So I will not be supporting this. If Councillor Suddards or you, Jeremy, want to come back and say, yeah, we've run this past all of the officers, all officers sign this off and say, yes, this is going to be fine, this is going to not cause us any problems, I still don't probably agree with it, but at least we can have a debate about it. I think at this point, it's not a valuable debate to have. So no, I will not be supporting this. Thank you.
And I mean, just on that point, I mean, of course, we are a committee like council. We can take any amendments to any policies here. However, having said that, this document has been out a week, I'm going to say off the top of my head. Is it a week, 5 days, or whatever it is? And nobody's come to me to say that they wanted policy amendments or policy changes, or to Tracy, I'm not too sure, but that would have been a better means to have the, a better conversation around it,
Sure.
to be honest.
The fact, sorry, I understand the statement you're making, sir, Chair, but the facts aren't quite as you have them. I understand an email went to council staff during the week, Wednesday, because these papers came out at the beginning of the week. So, and this was raised. Unfortunately, if probably it didn't come. So maybe it didn't go to the right person, but and it probably should have just been addressed to the chief executive. But it did. An email was, and that's why I read it just there. Was released on Wednesday of this week. So it has been before, and actually the intention, as Andrew said, was not to have this debate at this meeting, but to have some discussion with officers before it came here. And that didn't happen for whatever reason. So.
Okay, I mean, I take all that on board, but again, I'm not sure if I can call this a major policy deflection or change or amendment or whatever it is. But I think this is, I agree with Sam, it is such a, should I say, dare I say, a topic of conversation with some. And John, the debate we had last week against violence against women and children, on how some councillors, I'm not going to say who they were trying to bring in amendments to that, which was quite shambolic. I'm not saying this is shambolic by any means, but I'm just trying to say how things were trying to be changed on the day. I mean, there is other routes to do this, obviously, through motions to council. Sorry, and I didn't realise that Jeremy was going to move anything, which I mentioned to Andrew earlier on when I asked him to come forward and speak. Gillian, did you want to say something? Is that your...
All I was going to say is, of course, a discussion could have taken place prior to this committee, but the policy still would have been presented as published, so we couldn't have made any amendments prior to this evening. It would have either had to have been discussed or not discussed. I think the point that Councillor Charlton and Councillor Dalton are discussing now is the fact that, there may be some policies that have less changes or less legislative changes, which you may decide to debate more freely on the night and feel comfortable making those changes. I think the policies that Tracy's presenting this evening, they are all legislative based, so quite very important decisions have been made and changes have been made to these policies. So it's whether you as a committee feel comfortable confirming those changes this evening, or whether you think any of them need to go away and be discussed further between councillors and staff before they then come back to committee again. But the time period in between publishing and coming to committee would have still been the same, and the opportunity for discussion would have still been the same. It's just how you feel about these particular policies tonight, and if you feel comfortable agreeing those changes.
Yeah, well explained. Thank you. We do have a motion. So unless Jeremy wanted to withdraw it, that's entirely up to Jeremy and to do that. However, it's there. I think, does any other members have anything to say on that? Okay, Jeremy, do you have anything else that you wish to add? We can go to the vote otherwise.
No, happy for it to go to the vote.
Okay, can you, Andrew, I don't know, Andy, have you got the wording at 14.3, wouldn't it? I think to remove 14.3.
So it's to replace the wording of 14.4 with us. We recognise that access to suitable toilet facilities is important for all employees, whether trans or not.
Okay, Jeremy, content with that was the wording, yeah? Okay. So I'll put that to members. So all of those in favour of amending 14.4 to the words, please raise your hands. And those against? Okay, that is not carried. So that's, okay, so we will, on the floor is the wording as, sorry, on the screen is the wording as we have. Of course, that doesn't stop members, if they so wish, as I said, of motions and everything else, and, you know, whether, you know, the political party gets behind that mover is entirely up to the group and the member concerned, of course. So does any, sorry. Yeah, I'm going to come on to that, yeah. Do any members, so we are, as we are on the screen, the documents before us, do any members have any other comments at all? Okay, in which case I will move. So recommendation 2.1. 2.2 is the one that Tracy is, should I say, wants the changes, probation period for new staff from 6 months to 4 months, but that's part of the incoming changes coming down to us anyway. 2.3 and over page 2.4. Before I go to the vote, does anybody have any further or any other comments they wish to say? No, okay. In which case, they are on the floor. All those in favour of those, please raise your hands. Okay, that's everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks, Tracy.
Okay, no worries.
So that is 14 out the way. 15 is the CEO appraisal. So this is Tracy again. Before I bring Tracy in, so with reference to the last meeting, I have to say that was quite a difficult meeting to chair for those that were here. But in hindsight, I think there's been some excellent lessons learned from that and the process. And we've met 4 times, several times, or whatever it was, I can't remember, four times. And we've brought this, Tracy will explain this in detail in a moment. So we've met and brought this policy to you, and it has been real lessons learned for all those involved, and Tracy will come on to that. Once Tracy's finished, I'm going to let John lead on the report, because obviously for those that were here last time, John and Ted's been has had some insight to this as well. It was John, obviously, you know, you were the one leading, should I say, on the 20, or the one with the most concerns. And in hindsight, lessons learned, I think we've gone round full circle and we've come up with this, which is a really good report. So Tracy, over to you.
Lovely, thank you. Well, firstly, I wanted to say thank you to the councillors that did work with me. At the meeting number 1, it felt like, will we ever get anywhere? And I think, you know, by meeting number 4, you know, maybe we haven't got something perfect, but I think we've certainly got a process that at least we can all understand and know what stages are. So I don't know if we can just flick down to the infographic part of it that describes the journey. I mean, Chair, can I just check, did you want me to go through this, or did you want Councillor Wells to kind of talk his bit
I think,
first?
Tracy, if you lead through it first, John will pick up and potentially move any recommendation.
Perfect. So what we were trying to do is recognise that last year the process wasn't particularly clear. So with all best intentions for everybody, it didn't kind of produce what we wanted it to do, which was a way to look at what has the chief executive done well, you know, what objectives were set, how well did he perform against those objectives, and to feel a kind of positive impact into that, really. And one of the things that we talked about in early meetings was distancing the positive kind of objectives, development, stakeholder feedback part from the if ACER's not doing, or the CEO's not doing their job properly. So that's why there were the big processes around procedures for disciplinary, for capability, so that we can separate out those two areas. So, you know, the procedure will explain to councillors what needs to happen should you have any concerns about the chief executive not doing their job well. So this process is just looking at that kind of development area, really. And so what is being proposed is that tonight we bring the process as described on the screen and in the report to committee for sign off, to say that yes, we're happy that that's going to be what the process looks like. We're going to put in a stage 1A, because one of the things that was identified it by the group was that the objectives felt very council objectives. So rather than ACER objectives. So, you know, there's a kind of secondary meeting after this meeting to look at what do those specific objectives mean. There's then a period of CEO self-assessment. So, you know, assessing against a particular criteria. And I think I've put an example of what that criteria could look like in the subsequent information. And then there's some stakeholder evidence gathering. So again, the questions asked and the stakeholders will be agreed by the panel. Sorry, I should have mentioned that the panel is the leader of the council, the mayor, and the chair of the governance committee. So they're the people that's kind of taking or going through this process with me supporting them and trying to guide them and help with each of the stages. So then that culminates in a progress review meeting, October, November, where we look at achievements and that stakeholder feedback with an annual appraisal meeting around the end of February, March, and then a themed report coming to this committee. So last time there was a whole detailed report. This would just be a theme that's prepared by HR in consultation with the leader of the council. So in summary, what we've tried to do is at least explain what the process could look like. And, you know, hopefully we can all see what that looks like with clear dates in who's doing what and what the expectations are. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Before I bring John in, do members have any questions at all for Tracy? Jeremy?
Yeah, just, I mean, the process looks quite good, to be quite honest, and congratulations, everybody, for getting there. The only question I have is, and in fact, you may have covered it by saying somewhere, let's just go back. Okay, so the only question I had about the mayor, in fairness, is that the mayor's appointment is for a year. It's from, May, and I just wondered how that fits in with the conclusion of the appraisal when there'll be a new mayor that comes along.
So the conclusions aimed to be around the end of March for the March Governance Committee. So Councillor Bolwell was included in the last of the meetings that we had to talk about the process and seemed on board with that. So does that answer your question?
Thank you, Jeremy. Any other questions? Ted, then I'll bring John straight in after that.
First of all, Tracy, I'd like to thank you and the other members of your panel for something which is, I think, pretty good. Just to one point, really. I would rather have preferred just 3 objectives, not 6. Reason being that it takes away the concentration on particular aspects that either the appraiser or appraisee it would be looking at and thinking about. And that would, of course, carry on into the next section of a developmental themes, which would carry on into the next year. That would be, that's pretty well all I have to say. So I'll give you an A, maybe an A minus.
Excellent. Can I just come back to the point on the 6 objectives? So the reason that that's 6 is because I believe that's what we agreed, or that's what the committee agreed in March. And I believe that under the governance rules, we can't really do anything about that. We're kind of stuck with those 6. So next year, however, you know, absolutely 6 probably is too many, but unless my governance colleagues can help me out with a different answer, I think we're kind of stuck with them.
Yeah, you're right. I think any committee changes can't be made within 6 months at least, anyway. But is it 5? Okay, yeah, it's 5. But yeah, but thank you, Ted. John, please.
Yes, thank you. I'll start on the point that's just been made. I think that Ted has a good point, and I think that the process shouldn't be too onerous, because it's supportive for the CEO. And I guess my view on it is that maybe in the future we might look at not even changing that format by suggesting 3 or up to 5 objectives, because sometimes the person being appraised may feel there's a couple of things they want to flag up, particularly where they might need some support. That doesn't actually necessarily involve a lot of work from the CEO, but it may be something coming along which they see in the projection for the following year. I mean, the classic example is next year. Huge thing to coordinate. You might want a couple of other targets in there where the CEO might say, this is having an impact on my role, and I would, in order for that to be successful, I think that I would need, and then identify perhaps some support in fulfilling some of the logistics that go around that. But I think as it stands, I'd rather have 5 than 2, if you see what I mean. So that's the first thing. I think what I felt about the whole process is that it fills a gap for somebody that has huge responsibility and very little option of discussing their role and their own performance without, in an open way, which enables them to reflect on what they're doing, consider how they might have training needs, which isn't a weakness, that's identifying a need. And also, I think it's an important thing that when you are a leader of an organization, you need to have, in a non-threatening way, a group of people, stakeholders who are involved in the process, who can say to you, yeah, you're doing a great job, but what do you think about this? So it's about getting the CEO to reflect on their own performance, because when we're all busy and we're all working, we don't always reflect on what we're doing. And sometimes we might have a blind spot. But I think probably the biggest area, and I've been involved in appraisal myself, is that the person being appraised usually is in a position of responsibility. They work incredibly hard, and no one ever says to them, actually, you've done a really good job on this, this, and this. And I think that feedback has to come from stakeholders within the organization, and it's not something that they can do as a leader. They can't go around saying, do you think I did a good job? Because that isn't how you fulfill that role, and you're more concerned about how other people perform. So I think it's a really important process. But what I will say, Tracy, is looking at this documentation, you've made it really clear and simple to follow, because it isn't a complicated process. It just is about someone reflecting on their role, stakeholders giving a view on certain aspects, and providing an opportunity for professional development from the leader of our organization, which is a unique position, because everybody else will get feedback from their line manager, and those processes have to be carried out by somebody else. And in many other organizations, the CEO would be subjected to some form of appraisal by a board of directors, which sort of sit outside the organization. I'm not suggesting that's a good model for council, but definitely this process, I think, will be very helpful. And I hope that ASA will benefit from it. And that the upshot is that he should feel a lot better after the process than they did before, because he should come away with it with some acknowledgement of what he's doing and the knowledge that he can express his concerns and things that he wants to focus on in particular within his role. And I think everybody needs that opportunity to move forward in whatever role they are fulfilling.
Brilliant. John, are you wanting to move the recommendation, or do you want me to do it? Happy to do it here.
Yes, I'll move that we accept the proposal put before us by Tracy.
Okay. Sam put his hand up first, so he's beat you to it, Ted. So, Patricia, was that to speak, or did you were going to second? Right. Okay. Tracy, can I just ask, just if you could explain to committee, please, in the recommendation, it says approves the proposed CEO appraisal process for year 1. Could you just tell us what happens in year 2, 3, and 4 and beyond?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I missed that from my notes here. The reason that we said year 1 is because what we're also thinking about is how we can tie this into the appraisal process for the whole organisation. And at the moment, we're going to be running a pilot with our finance team on an appraisal process for SCC. But obviously we didn't want to wait for the end of that pilot before implementing something for ASA. So that's why this is a kind of year one. There's also some really interesting discussions that I've had about things like peer appraisals and those kind of things. So it might be that, actually year one, this kind of works. We've got some bits that don't work about it and we want to kind of, rectify that or change that for years 2 or 3. So that's why the kind of year one framework is there to kind of say, look, this may not be perfect. There may be learning opportunities, things that don't go as we planned, but that's okay because we can then amend that in for year 2 with that kind of learning experience and what we find from the organisation's appraisal process.
Thank you for that. Do members have any questions they want to raise before we go to the vote? Yep. Patricia.
Pleased to hear peer review in there.
Brilliant. Thank you. I know Jeremy's gone to a vote, but while he's not here. But so that has been moved and seconded. So moved by John, seconded by Sam. All those in favour, please show your hands. Okay, that's passed. Thank you very much. And I do believe that is it. Item 16. There isn't any other special circumstances, blah, blah, blah. Not today. So I will sign those minutes from the last meeting and pass those on. Thank you for your attendance and see you all soon.